Most people never think about owning a plumbing franchise, or electrical services, or an air conditioning repair franchise. They aren't considered sexy. But it's a little known fact that these low investment franchise brands can generate extremely strong revenues. And I'll give you an example. One of the low investment franchises we're going to be looking at today, the top 10% of their franchisees generate $3 million more per year than the highest earning Burger King restaurant location across the entire USA. And the investment is 1/10 of the cost you'd pay for a Burger King. We've got a great guest on the show for you today, Neighborly Brands. They are the largest home franchisor in the world with over 28 franchises in their portfolio. You may not have heard of Neighborly, but you've certainly seen some of their franchise brands driving around your neighborhood. If you've been looking for a franchise that is lower investment, well managed with strong revenue potential, you're going to want to stay tuned as Kevin Kohler from Franchise Inspectors is speaking with Trent Huey, VP of Franchise Development at Neighborly Brands. And if you need help finding your best franchise for your situation, always give Franchise Inspectors Broker Group a call before you buy.
All right, Trent, thanks so much for joining me today. I'm excited to really dive in and talk about Neighborly. And later on, I want to talk a little bit more in depth about a couple of your top performing brands and really get into the numbers behind those brands. But if you wouldn't mind just giving us, for our viewers that aren't familiar with Neighborly, like a 10,000 foot view of what Neighborly is and what you guys are trying to accomplish in the home services franchising space.
Yes, sir. Happy to, Kevin. Happy to be here today speaking with you about Mr. Rooter, Mr. Electric. But, Neighborly is the world's largest home franchisor. So let that sink in for a second. The world's largest. We've been around since 1981, started with one brand, Rainbow Restoration, and have grown into a conglomerate of 32 companies across the entire world. Primarily North America, Canada, and the UK, Europe, and that region as well. So we have 19 different service verticals that operate in the United States right now, covering everything from licensed brands like Mr. Electric, Mr. Rooter, AirServe, Mr. Handyman, Mr. Appliance, to some of our other brands like Shelf Genie, Grounds Guides, Molly Maid. So we really encompass, from the curb to inside the house, inside the walls, plumbing, you name it, we can go in there and fix it, repair it, maintain it. And it's taken us a while to get there, but we've surpassed over $4.7 billion in revenue in 2025. So even though we are very large, we are a very small piece of the puzzle in terms of the home services industry and how big it really is.
Yeah, that's wild. You guys have grown considerably even since I entered the industry, maybe 8 or 9 years ago. And there's a lot of these platforms out there, that are kind of acquiring different home services franchises underneath their umbrella, for lack of better words. So what really makes Neighborly different than all the other platforms or, home services systems that are out there?
Yeah, there's quite a few people that are trying to emulate what we are doing, try to, I don't want to say copy, but become the next Neighborly. And what really has set us apart is, number one, the training, the foundation, but then being able to share data. We are an AI-driven centric, franchisor at this point, but being able to share data and, more importantly, share customers and share their information. So a customer of Mr. Rooter is also a customer of Mr. Electric, Mr. Appliance, and let's say the other 8, 9, 10 brands that we might have in that area. So now you've got a company that has, for easy math, has 1,000 customers. You've got 8 other brands there that have 1,000 customers. Now you've got access to 8,000 customers that someone else may not have had access to. So your customer database that you can reach out to via emails, postcards that you need to send out, whether it's AI phone calls, is 8x. It's exponentially just so much bigger. And some data that they showed the other day is Neighborly actually has over 24 million email addresses that they've got access to, which is just absolutely remarkable, all across the United States, that we can access, that we can leverage in everybody's territories.
That's awesome. Yeah. I mean, when I talk about Neighborly Brands with our candidates, that's one thing I definitely bring up, because even franchising in general, it's a quicker ramp up, right? But when you have that ability to immediately day one get introduced to other Neighborly owners in your market, you get those client lists. it's a huge jumpstart to your business. So I've also heard a lot of like collaboration, even outside of just sharing customer lists between franchisees in your system. Like, how do you guys facilitate that kind of culture within Neighborly? Because I do hear it all the time. I think it's very impressive and it's a huge value add to candidates. So tell me more about what you guys do to facilitate that kind of culture.
That's one of the great things about being a part of a big team. Call it Big Blue. The Neighborly, the white in and inside the blue. Being a part of the Big Blue, but it's all about being on the same team. Whether it's a couple Mr. Electrics that are in Orlando, Florida. Again, we've got two owners that own five separate locations. They work very well together. So along with Mr. Rooter, Mr. Appliance, Mr. Handymans that are in those locations, but we do get them connected in person for in-person trainings. They also have their own meet and greets where they get together. Now we've also morphed into where the service professionals get to know each other. So it's actually morphed into the lower pyramid on that pyramid part are actually meeting. So now we are actually training service professionals when they go into a house. Let's say it's a Mr. Rooter owner and they realize that, hey, this light is flickering, or the customer's saying that, hey, I'm having some issues with some electric, or hey, I need this wall painted, or hey, I got some appliances that are on the skits. That, hey, we actually have Mr. Electric, we have Mr. Appliance, we have Mr. Handyman, and I can actually schedule them to come out right here from my iPad. So it's morphed in from, hey, let's just introduce the owners. Hey, let's just share customers to, hey, now let's get these service professionals together to also integrate Neighborly into what they are doing as well. So
Yeah.
it's really morphed into this big conglomerate of what they're doing.
That's awesome. Yeah. So yeah, there's that element of it of like sharing resources and client lists and referring customers. I've also been impressed from what I've learned in terms of like the systematic marketing done by Neighborly in local markets for their franchisees. And maybe it's, through a partner or whatever it may be. But can you talk a little bit more about that of like customer acquisition on more of a systematic basis and what that looks like?
Yeah, it's going to be general. We're driven by, internet now. Most everything is digitally driven. Word of mouth is by far the best way to grow a business. Problem is we don't talk to each other anymore. We want to text, we want a phone call, we want to do a Google review. So times have changed from the 50s and 60s where you would get home, talk to your neighbor. We don't do that anymore. We Snapchat, we go to Facebook, we communicate via LinkedIn, we communicate via TikTok, we communicate via Instagram, Twitter. So there are so many customers out there digitally right now. It's very important that you are very. Google runs the world. Let's face it. So Google runs the back end of everything in terms of marketing reviews. So it's very important to be on Google from SEO standpoint. A lot of people get information from social media. People
Mhm.
get the information they're looking for from reviews. People get the information they're looking for from Chat GPT or Grok or Copilot. AI is becoming a bigger piece of this as well. So there's so much information out there. You've got to make sure that you are on all these digital channels because the customers are different and how they get their information. But it is a very digitally driven world, and we know that. So we want to make sure that we are on SEO, we are on Google LSAs, we are on social media, we are on the AI train as well, because we want to be at the forefront of the customer's minds when it comes to that.
Got it. Okay. And tell me, like, just to clarify for the viewers, so when you're a franchisee, like that's not necessarily just totally on you. Like you may have to, budget for that and spend the money on all those different marketing channels, but like Neighborly has resources and vendors in place that will actually execute for you, correct? Or am I
That is
misspeaking?
correct. No, there are vendors within Neighborly through our Pro Trade vendor network that you can access to help you market in your area. That's one of the great things about Neighborly is marketing is siloed. So the
Hmm.
marketing team for Mr. Rooter, they only work for Mr. Rooter. They work for Neighborly, but they only market for Mr. Rooter franchise owners. So when they develop your customized local marketing plan, it is customized to the customers in your area, whether you're Dallas, Waco, San Antonio, Austin, Houston, it is customized to the customers in your area. So if we have 250 locations, that local marketing manager, they build out 250 customized marketing plans. It's not one size fits all, because how someone in Seattle, Washington gets information is different than how someone in Orlando or upstate New York or
Okay.
Omaha, Nebraska. Same customer, but how they get information is different. So yes, these vendors will help you market based on hey, we've got to follow our customized marketing plan to get our information in front of our customer and how they get it in our specific area.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, I love hearing that because that's one thing I always, I tell our candidates, like, ask the franchisor specifically, what is the plan when I enter into this market? Like, how have you done it in other markets? What is going to be, the same in my market? What's going to be unique? What is the spend, the channels, all that kind of stuff. And I think it's a really valuable part of what franchises offer, business owners. So I think it's important to really validate that through the process. So tell me, like, let's dive into a couple of my favorite brands. I've placed a lot of people into these franchises, and I like the trades overall, especially with where everything's going with AI. And
Oh, for sure.
so like Mr. Rooter's your plumbing franchise, and Mr. Electric is your electrical franchise. Maybe take one of those if you don't mind, and just kind of explain at a high level the business model and what that looks like for becoming a franchisee.
Absolutely. Let's discuss Mr. Electric and Mr. Rooter. So if I
Yep.
say electric, you can take the word electric out and put Rooter. They are basically synonymous in how their systems work, how we train the operational software. One deals with electric wire, the other one deals with PVC pipe. Other than that, how they operate is probably 95% the same. It
Yep.
really is. And that's why when you see multiple concept owners, a lot of them own a Mr. Rooter and a Mr. Electric at the same time because they work so well together. So let's just take Mr. Electric. The great thing about this brand is AI is not ever going to replace an electrician. AI is never going to come in and hang a ceiling fan. It's never going to come in and replace a panel that's sparking. It's not going to, install smart home automation. It's not going to install a generator. Now, AI might come in and help you figure out where a problem might be to diagnose it quicker. I can see that being a great thing in the future, maybe through smart panels or things like that. But what AI is going to come in and help do is from a marketing perspective, like we just discussed. So from an electric standpoint, every building that you're in has electricity in every single corner. It's
Yep.
going to break, it's going to need to be repaired, but more importantly, it's going to be upgraded. It's like going to Best Buy and buying a computer. You walk out the door, you're behind the times. There's another
Yeah.
one that's better, smarter, faster. People want to upgrade those things. People
Hmm.
nowadays, since COVID, are spending more time in their homes than they ever have. So they want these gadgets. They want smart home automation. They want whole home surge protections. They want smart panels. They want to be able to, just take the cord to plug their phones in to plug into outlet. You lose those blocks all the time. So now they make outlets. They have the USB chargers, USB-C chargers. People want their homes upgraded for this
Yep.
technology. And so let's face it, that's where we are going. And so no matter what side of the fence you sit on and going green, electric vehicles are here to stay. The only state in the United States that is mandating new houses that are built have EV chargers is California. Other than that, if you buy an electric car, your panel has to be upgraded. That's going to be a minimum of $4,000 up to $12,000 getting your panel upgraded just to plug the car in that you just bought.
Yep.
So and not to mention the commercial aspect and hotels, grocery stores, gas stations that want these installed as well. So the demand for this technology, the demand for electric service is just going to continue to grow. And it is a huge industry that just keeps growing every single year.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, and I'm excited about those industries, the trade, HVAC, electrical, plumbing. I don't think they're going anywhere, like you said. What? So the not the pushback, but the question I always get is like, I'm not, I don't know anything about electrical panels. I'm not an electrician.
Right.
Can I be an owner of this business? And so, what would you say to our viewers that are like, yeah, that's interesting, but I don't know anything about it. I don't even know, how to
That
hire an electrician. What would you say there?
that is music to our ears. Our
Yeah,
best owners could not screw in a light bulb, couldn't open or operate a pipe wrench. They can't, unhook and I'll go ahead and throw air serve in the mix as well. Our licensed brands, air serve, Rooter Electric, they can't do the work. But
sure.
Kevin, they do three things and they do three things really well. They're good leaders, meaning they can lead a team. They can follow and execute a marketing plan. And third, and probably one of the most important, is they can manage numbers. They know how many calls they've got to get in every day. They know how many jobs their guys have to close. They know what their job average needs to be. They know their numbers.
Yep.
So if they can do those three things really well, they can own and operate a very successful brand here at Neighborly.
For sure. Yeah. And what do you, so when let's say you bought Mr. Electric and you need to hire your first electrician, what does that process look like for an owner? And, how long does it typically take to find that first electrician on your team?
Finding an electrician, come to find out, is not the hardest thing. It's finding the right first electrician. So we do have a vendor network in ProTradeNet that will help you bring in top tier talent. And what most of our owners find is when they go into a market, they become that employer of choice. Because our ProTradeNet vendor network is so vast, they have the opportunity to offer them more money. They have the opportunity to offer health insurance, dental insurance, 401k plans, things they don't get at Bob's Electric down the street. No offense to Bob's Electric, probably a good guy, but he can't offer some of the things that Neighborly or Mr. Electric can because of how big our operation is. So
Yeah.
it's really about finding that right first person. So that's why we recommend starting with two, and that way, in case you have to let one go, you've still got a van there that's creating revenue from the start. But everybody talks about a labor shortage. There's not a labor shortage. There's a good owner shortage. That's
Yeah.
what it is. It's finding a good owner that wants to come in and build a brand in an area.
And that's what I said is when I talk about this, I talk about like you got to build a culture and be able to manage team and incentivize them, give them opportunities for growth within the company, and that's how you build a business in any industry. So
For sure.
it's no different in this one. What is the like general investment range for a Mr. Electric or Mr. Rooter? And then could we dive into the item 19, the financial performance for either one of those?
Absolutely. Minimum investment 350. So the Soho Plus loan from the SBA is perfect for this. It helps you get through break even, growth, and scale phase of the business. So 350 Soho Plus loan. If you've got more, that's great. The main reason a lot of the reason business fails are undercapitalized. So we want to make sure that you've got more than you need, more than necessary, than the minimum requirements to be successful.
Got it. And what do you mean by Soho business loan, just for our viewers? What does that mean?
So it's a specific loan through the SBA. It's called the Soho Plus loan. Now the SBA Express goes up to 150. The Soho Plus loan goes up to 350.
Okay.
It's non-collateralized, so you're not having to put a house up. You're not having to put vehicles or land up for collateral. It's still non-collateralized. But the SBA and certain banks saw these brands grow really fast, so they created a special loan for these brands over the 150 SBA Express Plus loan because they grow so fast, they cash flow so well. Hey, we're going to help them get through this break-even growth phase even faster and even better. So they went and approved a higher loan amount because they do grow so fast.
Oh, interesting. Okay. So special SBA loan for those type of businesses. What do you look like in terms of item 19, financial performance? It looks like I think you mentioned you came out with your 2025 numbers, so I'm curious to hear more about that.
Yeah, really, really good numbers. So our average Mr. Electric does about 1.1, $1.2 million in revenue, and our average Mr. Rooter is just a hair under 2.1 million. It's like 2,093,000. So I'll just say 2.1 million for Mr. Rooter. But what's interesting is, you've got to factor in we do still have some electricians, some trucks and trucks that still operate. So when I'm looking at people who are not electricians, who are not plumbers coming in the business, I'm looking at the top 50%. So that's what I'm looking at. So our top 50% owners for Mr. Electric are in the $2.5 million range, and our top 50% for Mr. Rooter owners, you're going to be shocked at this, are about $4.5 million in
Wow.
revenue. And then our top 10% performers for Mr. Electric is over 6 million, and our top 10% for Mr. Rooter is 8.1 million.
Wow.
So
That's
potential
crazy.
for
Yeah.
great revenue and a great business.
Yeah. I mean, especially when you look at we always talk about like the investment to revenue potential, like ratio or potential or whatever you want to call it, but like 350 to get to that kind of potential revenue is, I know you're going to have to reinvest in the business, but it's hard to find a franchise with that kind of potential. And so that's exciting. So I assume with these franchises, you do need like a small warehouse or something to operate out of, and that's included in the investment range. Is that
That
correct?
is that is correct. We factor in a small office space into that investment range. Again, like I mentioned earlier, Google runs the world. Google needs to verify this office. They're going to send you a little postcard so you get that GBP pin page. Again, some people shop via looking at a map on Google when they type in electrical service companies near me. They look at the map. You've got to
Yeah.
have a pin on that map. If and I'll kind of mention this going back to marketing. My wife and I are two different shoppers. My wife is a review person. Me, I scroll right past the map. I scroll right past the paid ads, and I go to see what Google lists one, two, or three.
Yeah.
And guess what? If I don't see what I like, I type something else into the search bar. Again, same customer, same market, but how my wife and I get information, two different ways. So we've got to make sure that Google represents where we're at, from that office standpoint. Very important.
Gotcha. Okay. And you mentioned like that top 50% of performers. What do you think sets them apart versus like the bottom 50? Aside from like the capital required to grow and stuff like that and desire, but like what really from a skill set standpoint or mindset standpoint sets them apart in your opinion?
Number one, they've got great grit. They're results oriented. And then, probably the most important is they're not scared to ask questions and they follow the system to a T. And here's the thing about franchising, you're getting into franchising for a system that has been successful for over 40 years. I'll just say 45 years now. The system works. You just got to follow the system and execute the system. And if there's training that's offered, go to training. Go
Yep.
spend time with the other owners. Go spend time with an owner that's been in business for 2 years and he can tell you, hey, this is the best thing I did when I was in the first 6 months of my business. Go spend time with that owner that's been in for 10 years. See the things that they are doing. Our owners with all of our brands would love to have you. They love having you. They want to see you be successful. Again, you're all part of the same team. Take advantage of being part of a huge, vast network of people that are successful in this business. Take advantage of it.
Yeah.
So go to the trainings and follow the system and execute the system.
Awesome. Okay. Couple more questions here. So, I own Mr. Electric in Omaha, Nebraska, and I've really scaled up the business and have, multiple territories. What would be next for me if I like, hey, I come to Trent and I want to like continue to grow? Like, what would you say to me? What are the opportunities for me to continue to grow within Neighborly?
That's a great question. So you've got a couple opportunities there, a couple routes that you can go. Number one, stay within the same brand
Hmm.
and venture out. Maybe it's somewhere in Indiana, Illinois, Kansas, somewhere regionally out there. You've got your infrastructure in place in Omaha, or you can also think internally. What other brands are not here in Omaha that I still have this infrastructure in place, that uses Service Titan? Maybe it's another Mr. Rooter, maybe it's an AirServe Handyman, another brand that uses Service Titan, or maybe you think outside the repair brands like those are, and maybe it's a Molly Maid. Maybe I'm thinking completely outside the box. So you've got a couple options there to either stay in that brand and just expand regionally, or expand with a different concept in that same market. But just knowing that, hey, if I go to a different brand, I may have a different operational software. So now it's a completely different setup in terms of who's answering the phone, who's looking at this computer system. So you've got to kind of weigh it from that point of view, what you want to do, and what that investment looks like, reaching out to that next concept, if that makes
Gotcha.
sense.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And knowing it's like a lot of your brands have been around for a while, it's a big system. Do you ever see opportunities where like, hey, I have a guy approaching retirement in my market for a brand that I'm interested in. Do you see a lot of other owners like selling to neighborly owners, or is that not common?
Absolutely, and 100%. And I would start those conversations early. Just because you've been in business for a year doesn't mean you should not reach out to the local owner and say, "Hey, if you're ever interested in selling, let me know if it's a different brand."
Yeah,
Absolutely, start those conversations early. Or even if it's in a regional, even if it's a city that's close by, get into the system, learn those systems. So without a doubt, that's what's great about this, about Neighborly in general. We've got one owner named Lee Downing. I believe he has 8 brands
oh wow,
located throughout Tennessee, northern Alabama. I believe he's got it's. I think it's 8. It could be 6. Anyways, he's got over 5. You got to count on 2 hands. Let me put it to you that way. How many brands he's got that he
yeah,
operates? He does a great job with what he's got with all those concepts. Kind of in that central southeast area.
that's awesome. Anything else regarding neighborly we didn't talk about that you think would be important for our viewers to know? And then second question, any advice you have for people looking at franchising, especially home services franchising in general? So two questions there.
Don't be scared to talk to owners. Our owners are very happy. Even the ones that have been in for a year to 10 years, we've got great validation. So spend time with the owners. Ask them those important questions. What mistakes did you make starting out? What things did you do that made you successful? There's a reason that they are happy. They'll tell you the good, the bad, the ugly of our brands. But also ask them, would you do it again? And they would say yes. So that's the great thing about Neighborly is they love our brands. They're successful. And at the end of the day, you're not around for 45 years if your owners are not happy and they're not successful, because we're only successful if our owners are successful and we're growing. So that's going to be the biggest thing is talk to owners. And if you realize that, hey, Mr. Electric or Mr. Rooter's not right for you, guess what? We've got 17 other brands that we can explore that, hey, something at Neighborly might be the right fit for you.
For sure. Awesome, man. Well, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it. If anybody is interested in learning, more about Neighborly and or seeing which franchises are available in your market, you can click the link above and I can help you out. But Trent, I appreciate your time. Thanks so much, and we'll talk again soon.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Kevin. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks.
Thank you.